can't see the stream at all, but I can see the chat, so it's fine. Anyway, hello. Oh, okay. I'm glad I sound great. Apparently I blow out mics, so that's cool. Alrighty, hello. I'm Peachie. They, them, please. I'm the program and guest relations person for CitrusCon, and I also did panels and such for FujoCon all 3 years. So some of you might know me from there. A handful of you might know me from actual like in-person conventions. I've been promoting the shit out of CitrusCon at my in-person conventions too, so hopefully at least one of you showed up. Too strong for the snowball mic, yeah, pretty much. Excuse me. But yeah, I've been doing this for a really fucking long time. A fair warning before I get into all of this. So this is written for my in-person conventions, and because I've been so goddamn busy putting a literal con together, I didn't really change this to suit not an in-person convention, but it'll be fine. If you've been to this panel before, I did it at FujoCon last year. I think it's fairly similar, but I'll get into all that. Anyway, you're going to learn a lot of uncomfortable truths about me. The panel is pretty dark. Some of this will be repeats from Healing My Trauma with Fictional Band-Aids. If you've ever seen that one, they're fairly similar. I'm going to cough a lot because my allergies are trying to kill me. If you've been to any of my other panels, this one is a bit different and fairly long-winded. I'll mostly be reading off my screen. That doesn't really matter because this is in person and you can't see where my face is. Because I have a tendency to ramble otherwise and I get off topic. I have a lot of thoughts to get through in a short amount of time. Q&A will be available at the end. Everyone's experience with mental instability is different, and mine may be very different from yours, but yours is still very much valid. I have in here that I'm a BL fan. Yeah, no shit. I do this at in-person cons, but I don't list it as BL specific. So I have that in there that I'm going to talk about gay shit in this panel. So there's that. Kind of new to Twitch. Is there is there a way to turn on closed captioning? I'll have my mod help you in the chat as I keep talking. Oh, that's yeah, that's depressing. This one is going to be uploaded to YouTube, and YouTube will have auto captions, I know for certain. We're gonna work on that for next year because I want it to be better than it is this year. We've been slamming, dude. I apologize for not having it though. I'm turning into fucking staff mode. Anyway, I'm doing a panel. I'm in the process of preparing to write an academic paper on this subject. I say in the process, meaning it's going to take me fucking years to get this bitch done. But anyway, in order to do that, I'm running a bunch of surveys. So I'm going to go over all of that shit next. But before I get into survey stuff, disclaimers and content warnings, discussions involving harsh themes such as unaliving, pedophilia, incest, etc., neurodivergence, mental illness, death threats, doxing, online and in-person harassment. Nothing is too overly described in detail or shown on screen, but they are all very present the entire presentation. I have little control over what gets brought up during Q&A, but if you have a question and want some help, I will try. My Twitter, I refuse to call it X. You couldn't pay me enough, is at Church of BL. So feel free to send me stuff there and I will get back to you. So about the survey, all of the stats and quotes that I have in this panel are pulled from 2 surveys that I ran, one in 2022 and my current one from 2023. That's still running right now. I love coughing every 15 seconds. I edit the survey periodically to update variables as I figure them out. but I think my most recent one is pretty set in stone, so I'll focus on that one the most. All responses to my survey are taken anonymously, and all participants have consented to me using their responses for content. My main target audience, again, I do this at in-person conventions a lot, is focused on BL and BL culture. Who would have fucking thunk? And then I explain what BL is. I hope you know what BL is. There is a giant stigma against humans who consume BL media, and even infighting within the fandom itself. Who knew? Due to such, my 2 previous surveys focused solely on BL. However, over time, I came to realize that my findings from my sundry research applied to more than just boys love and spread out across other genre of fictional media. So for my 2023 edit, the one that I'm running right now, I've opened it up to folks outside of the BL fandom and made the questions a little more broad. I just turned mute on my computer. Can you still hear me, V? Cool. So you don't hear my Discord notifications every 15 seconds. Yeah. Excuse me. But this is kind of what it looks like. If you like this panel, you like my content, you want to contribute to my bullshit, it is available via churchofbl.com. I'm sure I will talk about that more in a minute. Again, this subject is a bit dark, so if you need to bail at any time, I think you're rad. Thanks for dropping by. On to the trauma. Okay, so starting off strong. Do you, more often than not, favor fictional characters or media that are commonly hated by the general fandom space, categorized as, quote, problematic or commonly seen as immoral more than you typically do the more morally ethical or fandom popular ones? When they were asked that, they were given these examples. Example 1, if you like the more popular characters sometimes, but typically you always gravitate towards the most unpopular of ships, misunderstood characters, or the villain/antagonist, you would select yes. Example 2, if you mostly enjoy the more heroic or morally aligned characters, or just the more popular characters in general, and do not typically side with or feel much empathy for most villains or antagonists, you would select no. Example 3, if your faves are kind of a toss-up between media, depending on like what it is, but it's not unusual for you to like a misunderstood or villain type character, you would select sometimes. As of when I pulled my responses from my 2023 one, and granted, this was a minute ago, so I probably have more shit, but I did not have time to go through it. As of this point, I had 52, and out of 52, 23 said yes, 26 said sometimes, and 3 said no. So out of 52 responses, 100% of those people also considered themselves pro-ship. Pro-ship being defined as used to describe someone who respects others for their fictional pairings, regardless of their own feelings. They are of the mindset that you can enjoy something without endorsing it in real life. So I am clearly one of the folks in the yes category. Why do I like these messed up children? Well, let's break that down. Part 1, seeing my mental instability in my toxic comfort characters. What is a comfort character? Well, a comfort character is when a fictional character, I can talk, makes you feel safe and happy when sad, upset, or uncomfortable. Some go as far as to associate characters as a kin, which is basically self-identifying with a fictional character, which in some cases, in my opinion, could fall under comfort character as well. Yes, just Monica, best girl. I, more often than not, kin/self-insert with unliked or misunderstood characters, typically of the villain variety. The main reason, I have crippling amounts of anxiety, depression, social phobias, body dysphoria, I'm demi-male non-binary, childhood trauma, relationship and sexual abuse related trauma, which in turn resulted in post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD. I'm medically diagnosed bipolar 2 and ADHD. I'm also neurodivergent with a possible dose of autism. I'm in the process of being officially diagnosed as such. I also have a tiny smattering of gay. So, the vast majority of us also identify with or have some variety of mental disorder. Not saying gay is a mental disorder, that was worded terribly, but we all got some shit going on. So on Team Villain, when asked, do you identify with or have been diagnosed with any variety of mental disorder, 87% said yes. And on the side that said that they were more neutral, 80% said yes, which I did not find surprising, to be honest. For the sake of this presentation, I'm going to separate my categories into Team Villain and Team Neutral, because when I did this survey, and I would like to say I've done this survey 3 times, I only have 3 people who said that they did not simp villains or hated characters in any way, shape, or form. I really need to figure out how to get the normal humans to fucking fill out my goddamn survey. I am aware of what my target audience is. So, yeah, please get your normie friends to fucking fill out my goddamn survey, but I will get to that. I have a whole section, but anyway. Bless my poor 3 wholesome beans. But anyway. Team Villain, when asked, do you feel a fan's lived experiences play a role in their ability to sympathize with different varieties of fictional characters that others cannot? Example, if yes, you believe that seeing your own struggles played out through a fictional character would make you sympathize with them more as it's a lived experience for you. Or example 2, if no, you don't feel as though lived experience would play much of a role when it came to sympathizing with a fictional character. Team Villain said 78% said yes, it would have something to do with that. And then on neutral, 76% said yes, it would have something to do with that. So that doesn't surprise me at all. The link is on my website, churchofbl.com. I'll talk about it at the end. I think I have a little QR code thingy. I will get to that, I swear to God. So again, none of this really surprised me. So far, this is shit that I just figured people would say. So suffice to say, given the numbers and based off my own experience, I feel it's a fair guess that humans who are commonly misunderstood or have some variety of lived experience with feeling othered, which I feel is fairly common among neurodivergent or mentally, quote unquote, mentally disabled people, they'll gravitate towards the same themes in both characters they identify with or just simp super hard or just their media choices in general. And then I have a bunch of good boys and girls up here. So when asked, have you ever felt a level of kinship with a fictional character? 63% on Team Villain said yes, and 88% on Team Hero/Neutral said yes. I found it interesting that more of the villain/misunderstood character simps were less likely to self-insert or feel kinship with these characters. But it kind of makes sense when you consider how the majority consumes the content in the first place. So when asked, do you tend to view fiction from an emotional standpoint, or are you more logical or detached? Examples being emotional. You tend to self-insert with characters or get emotionally invested in plot lines. You're more prone to extreme empathy and will typically become very passionate about your faves. You would fall under emotional. If you enjoy fiction but don't get too overly attached to specific characters and view their stories completely from an outsider's perspective, you enjoy well-written works but are not typically the type to feel overly emotional about them, you would fall under logical or detached. On Team Villain, 52% said it kind of depends on the series, and then 34% said that they fell under emotional, with a whopping 13 saying that they were logical or detached. That feels like a small percentage, but it's bigger than you think. Um, on Team Neutral, it was almost 50-50. There's that one person that said logical. I personally fall under villain, simp, emotional. A majority of my faves are my faves because I relate to them in some fashion or feel empathetic to some extent, but I can understand this logic. I feel like these stats make sense, as being able to view a villainous or misunderstood character must be easier for that large portion of fans who view media from a more analytical standpoint. Some felt detached from the story entirely, and I can see that equating to not feeling as affected when a villain or misunderstood character does something fucking insane. Characters doing things that are fucking insane. With that said, from the viewpoint of someone who is a more emotional fan, some examples that I personally would really relate to would be Jingguang Yao from MDZS and Adam from Skate the Infinity. Starting with Jingguang Yao. He is a villain. Grew up in a brothel with his mother after being abandoned by his garbage father who refused to help them. Tons of parental abuse via his father and stepmother. Excuse me. Which led to others feeling it was valid to shame him as well. Is often seen only at face value, is constantly overlooked, looked down upon, taken advantage of, ignored and insulted over his lineage, and how that somehow makes him less of a person. Is extremely manipulative, but if more people had given him the light of day, he could have been a great and caring leader instead of crumbling and in turn becoming a revenge-crazed villain. Refused to hurt or bring any shame to the one person who gave him a chance and saw him as he was. And then we have Adam from Skate the Infinity, also classified as a villain. He is a politician who leads a double life as a skilled skateboarder and serves as the main antagonist of the series. While skating, Adam is very confident in his own skills and ruthless towards his opponents, not really caring if he causes injuries indirectly or personally by using physical violence. He's very flamboyant with his actions and very obviously queer-coded. He uses skating as a, quote, ritual of love, which goes hand in hand with his theme and persona as the matador of love. While Adam is admittedly a dumpster fire of a human, it all stems from multiple people over and over and over and over and over again, expecting the most out of him at all times and then punishing him when he failed, framing their abuse as love. Both of these characters deal with unrealistic expectations set by their families. Due to such, they became two-faced and took their frustrations out on others, more often than not out of a sense of loneliness or feeling unseen. They've never felt appreciated or cared for, so why should they do the same for others? That's an emotion that they legitimately do not understand. This is when I start getting really analytical. On to me saying too much about myself. These characters are all, they all have characteristics that I relate to personally and feel immense empathy towards. Examples being, with Jingguang Yao, as a person who had an extremely dysfunctional childhood, riddled with manipulation, where my character was constantly taken into account based solely upon who my mother was, and then in turn became extremely protective of her despite the abuse that I received on her behalf. Guang Yao's relationship with his mother hits home really hard for me. I have a small case of Stockholm syndrome for my mother. I recently cut them off due to abuse, and it went just about as well as you could imagine. She's a textbook narcissist. It's not entirely her fault that she's as bent as they come. Due to her untreated mental disorders and me being the only target she could take her stress out on, despite me being a child, and continuing to expect that level of control as I became an adult. I relate to Jingguang Yao's situation on a level that's almost painful for me. Our childhoods were extremely similar. His mother conditioned him to believe that he had to become an honorable, powerful man and forced a lot on him. all of which he took. She was his only ally. They only had each other. Everyone was their enemy. Much of the abuse that he receives in the novel is reminiscent of my own experiences. My mother and I were hated and surrounded by people who did not see us as human, only poor and not welcome. A lot of his triggers and reactions to such are quite close to my own, minus, the murder. Nobody listened when he talked. Nobody cared about his struggles. He tried to get others to see, to be on his side, but none of them really cared enough to talk him off the cliff. Luckily, I got out of my situation, but he was never given that chance. I also recently had the epiphany that characters who are often two-faced can read as masking, which is a common trait autistic people tend to have. We have our people face, the one that makes us appear as socially normal as we can manage, and our actual one. Guangao is a perfect example of that. He masks his traits that he knows that others would not or choose not to understand in order to get by. And Adam from Skate. I relate to Adam a lot in terms of seemingly looking very together, but very much not being so. Like Adam, I am very unapologetically myself. I am loud as hell, super opinionated, extremely queer, and I say what I want when I want to, and I will not let people step on me. At least that's what I want people to think. Being assertive and in control eases our breed of anxiety. It's not that we aren't these things, we are. We just amplify it to 100,000% in order to protect ourselves from disappointment. You can't hurt me if you weren't a concern in the first place. Both Adam and myself had parental figures who only saw us as tools to be manipulated. We were to be successful and make others look good. It was never really about us. They would claim it was, but it wasn't. We were also conditioned into believing that both physical and mental abuse were signs of love. If someone is punishing you or calling you out for your faults, that means that they care about you and they're just trying to help. So, as a villain simp, I completely understand that these are not traits that others can always empathize with. They only see villain. However, I would like to point out that someone loving or identifying with a character that you hate does not equate them to idolizing their actions in a real life scenario. Opinions on fiction do not equate to actual actions towards real people. And Toga. Okay. For example, general problems you have when being a misunderstood character / villain stan. Your stereotypical fan, not everyone, but many, no matter the series or genre of media, will judge you at first sight. Be that upon seeing you online in posts, in cosplay, having merch on your Eat a Bag, you are villain scum, and any explanation of your existence is void. While others are allowed to take their fictional media incredibly seriously, when you do, you're being problematic and promoting inappropriate behavior. There is, believe it or not, a difference between promoting bad behavior and enjoying fiction. Another common issue, though less serious if you have thick skin, is that other fans will find it completely valid and acceptable to read you to filth or joke about your favorite characters, often in front of you, because you like a misunderstood or irredeemable character, and therefore you're fair game to have all of the figurative tomatoes thrown at you. The general consensus among my survey responses was wrapped up pretty nicely by this one respondee's quote. None of these characters are real, and liking a villain is not a moral indicator. One that made me sad, though, because I fully understand this, was, and I quote, I spent years believing that I did deserve to be treated badly. It's really only been recently in an environment with supportive people that I've come to realize it wasn't my fault for constantly being at the receiving end of discourse that treated me like a bad gay, that left me feeling like there was something wrong with me or my innate goodness because of the characters that I related to, or my deserving of happiness. It's taken me years to unlearn that. Just like it's taken years for me to unlearn that you can't convince people of your humanity when they simply don't want to see it. It's agonizing to need to do that both as a queer human in real life and in fandom, which is a space that I come to for relaxation and fun and to exercise my demons. But during my first survey, when respondents were asked what types of traits that they related to in regards to hated characters, many pinpointed themes of self-loathing, a desire for change, past trauma, morally gray characters, feelings of disenfranchisement, a desire to break down a corrupt system. One queer POC responder related to feelings of being othered and misunderstood. An autistic responder said that antagonists that are two-faced or fake can often read as masking, which was relatable to them. Some stated feelings about villain type characters often reading as queer coded, like in general, which in and of itself is relatable to them depending on the character. Which, side note, gay characters, specifically gay male characters being typecast as villains or the court jester of the media, is a whole can of worms in and of itself. Ho, buddy, don't get me started. Moving on from that, though, when asked, do you engage in fandom culture? Example being, talk about characters or plot with folks online, reading or writing fanfic, scrolling TikToks, making or enjoying fan art, commenting in sundry comment sections in regards to media that you like. 82% on Team Villain said yes, and 80% on Team Neutral said yes. Despite the majority participating in fandom spaces, I would like to note that section who limit their interactions or don't interact at all. When speaking with folks at conventions, I've had multiple people tell me that they've been either scared off or feel intimidated by them, by like fandom spaces, and keep their preferences and faves to themselves. I feel this is absurdly disheartening, but at the same time, I kind of understand. So the amount of folks saying that it bothers them in any fashion is not surprising at all, and that sucks. When asked if a fandom space has ever degraded you or made you feel like you do not belong among them due to your taste in favorite character, media, or genre, how do you feel about it? 47% on Team Villain said it sometimes bothers me, but I don't say anything about it. And 47% on Team Neutral said the same. 19 said it bothers me a lot, but I don't say anything about it. And 28 on Team Neutral said the same. And 23 on Team Villain said I don't like it and I will speak up about it when it happens. And then 19% on Team Neutral. And then a whopping 9% on Villain said it doesn't bother me and I don't take it seriously. And then 1% on Team Neutral said that it doesn't bother them at all. Fandom spaces should be inclusive. We're stigmatized enough as it is. And when it comes to hating characters in particular and taking it out on their fans, have you ever once realized that your emotions could very well be attributed to good writing? They want you to hate them. That's the point. But it was never a demand. Art is subjective and up for interpretation. It's meant to be discussed, not fought over. When asked if yes, in regards to a fandom space ever degrading you or making you feel like you don't belong among them due to your taste in favorite character, media, or genre, on Team Villain on the 2022 survey, 91% said yes, and 79% said yes on Team Neutral. These are absurdly high numbers, and sadly, I'm not surprised in the slightest. But before I get into my next section, I'd like to attempt to define everyone's favorite buzzword when it comes to this subject: problematic. Are you me? Fuck you. I'm in Kira's house, the co-chair, and I said problematic, and she just started laughing, and I'm dying. They're dying upstairs. Anyway, defining problematic, and I'm going to attempt to go a little quick because I'm already talking too much. V says go get ready for your fucking panel. Okay, so what I find problematic about defining problematic is the definition in itself seems to be relative to everyone. So, first off, in English, the adjective, quote, problematic, and I swear I'm going somewhere with this, is defined by Merriam-Webster as, quote, posing a problem, difficult to solve or decide, open for question or debate. Cambridge defines it as full of problems or difficulties, or causing difficulties, or hard to deal with. Additionally, Merriam-Webster defines, quote, wrong as not right or proper according to a code, standard, or convention, or something that is not in accordance with truth or facts. In order to kind of figure out what makes content problematic, at least to the people who throw the word around a lot, you need to understand that they are 9 times out of 10 not using the not truth or fact. They are using the not truth or fact definition of wrong. And by being wrong, you are therefore being problematic. You are wrong, and that is causing difficulty. But majority of the time, in terms of fandom and fictional characters in media, the use of the word wrong is relative to the person. Every culture has its own standard of morals, and you can't expect other cultures to follow whatever you feel is the correct moral code. That's very colonizer of you. These fictional subject matters are something that pose difficulty for you specifically, something that you find wrong based on yours or whomever you think you're representing's codes, standards, or conventions, but that by default does not make it a fact. It's relative to the person. You cannot go into these conversations with such a guilty till proven innocent standpoint. Is there a line to this? Absolutely. I feel the vast majority of the fandom space can agree that glorifying racism is not up for debate. Positive depictions of transphobia, homophobia, TERFs, murder, rape, assault, any variety of abuse, that is not up for debate. However, nuance is a thing, and this all depends on yours and the author's intent. Art is subjective, subjective being defined by Oxford as based on or influenced by personal feelings, tastes, or opinions. Additionally, the content in question is fictional. You can use hard to stomach themes to depict feelings that wouldn't hit as hard otherwise. There's a nuance to majority of this that a lot of folks seem to miss or choose not to look any deeper into without venting their anger. From an article that I liked by Jamie Weinman, and I quote, because anything can be problematic, writers feel comfortable using it without trying too hard to justify it. This can be particularly common in art, where the use of a trope is sometimes justified on an individual basis, even if it reinforces old stereotypes. So calling it problematic sometimes seems like a way of sidestepping the question of whether it was well used or whether it should have been avoided entirely. Just because Kugi, the author of the popular psychological horror manhwa Killing Stalking, chose to write about a relationship between a serial killer and a stalker does not mean that the point of the media was go kill people, it's hot. You just missed the whole point. And to people who just find deranged serial killers hot, dude, just don't advocate for or decide to kill people. This isn't something I should have to tell you. If you're mature enough to understand that, go invest in whatever fictional content you want. Keyword, fictional, not real, fictional. And this is where I get more into like shit about just aunties being narcissistic and terrible. But I'm already talking too much, and I want to do Q&A because y'all are commenting a lot, and I can't read all of it, and I want to get to it. So I'm gonna skip around a little bit. Okay, so with all that said, let's talk aunties. A little preface before I get into it. This is for research purposes only, and all answers were taken anonymously. These questions are intended to compare an auntie's behavior in contrast to the ones affected by auntie behavior. I would like to break these two down a little bit on the two sides of the coin. This is intended to be an informed discussion that will take opinions from both sides, but please keep in mind that All opinions included in COBL content regarding these actions are coming from the viewpoint of someone who has been negatively targeted by anti-behavior and openly pro-ship. So, with that said, what are your feelings on antis? Anti being defined as someone who will call out or degrade a person over their fictional preferences, oftentimes towards people they don't know personally. In some extreme cases, an anti will attempt to interfere with the disliked fan's personal life, in most cases doxing, due to their taste in fictional content. They believe that your taste in fiction is a mirror into your personal life and belief system and should be stood up to and held accountable. Example, if you like a character who enjoys murder and violence against others, to an anti, that therefore means that you are promoting positively towards real life serial killers and abusers and would be more willing to excuse their actions of actual murder and abuse. So, with all that said, when asked how they felt about it, 91% on Team Villain said, I find their behavior unacceptable and do not condone their typical actions in any way. With a whopping like 8% on Team Villain saying sometimes anti-behavior is acceptable. It wholly depends on the anti and what they're upset about, which point, I will give you that one. And similar to Team Neutral, it was split up similarly. When asked, do you have any specific characters that you hate or would consider your least favorite? 82% on Team Villain said yes. 88% on Team Neutral said yes. And then when asked, if yes, do you view others differently if they love that character in particular? Example, you absolutely despise Bakugo from Hero Academia, but one of your friends loves him and has every piece of merch that exists. If that would seriously bother you and affect how you interact with that person, you would say yes. If it wouldn't change your relationship with them in any way, you would select no. Majority on both sides said it wouldn't affect them. A handful said that it would, but it depends. 100% out of, wait, flip that. I can't speak English. You know what I'm talking about. 100% of 52 responses said that it's not going to affect them in any way, shape, or form based on who the fuck you like. Funny thing, both my 2022 and 2023 surveys, out of the sundry folks who more commonly dug hated characters and villains, their most mentioned character that they disliked was Deku from Hero Academia, and it makes me laugh every time. So much Deku slander. Oh my fucking god. I have nothing against pure little green boy. Point proven, but moving on, back on topic. There are 3 types of anti. These are responses from my sundry surveys, and they're all great. On the left-hand side, I'm just going to summarize it. Basically, this person finds like racism, sexism, ableism, homophobia, transphobia, transmisogynistic tropes, and such in media as problematic and will open their mouth about it. And that is fucking valid. And honestly, them even considering themselves as an anti when they're doing the Lord's work is already like, I personally wouldn't consider that anti-behavior. If it's something legitimate and you're just saying your piece, you're not being a dick about it, I'm not mad about that. But then we have the other two. This person says, yes, I have. I used to be an anti back in high school, and now I really regret attacking and bashing those people because they were just having fun and I was being unnecessarily rude about it. And then we have my one resident auntie that filled out my 2023 survey. They are my best friend and they don't even know it. What they said was, stupid bleep women shouldn't read cringe, nasty, fetishized things like Omegaverse, just plain disgusting fujoshi. And if you are gay men like that, you are disgusting. Thanks. So on top of your run-of-the-mill auntie, to make matters worse, let's talk about your friends. Based off of my own hypothesis after reading elaborated responses and the stuff that I gathered, the split on the villain side about like the question was, if yes, or sometimes, has a friend or loved one ever cracked jokes or degraded you over your taste of favorite character, media, or genre? It was almost 50-50. Friends are probably more often than not in the same boat as you if you're more of a villain simp. I feel like you're gonna be more prone to hang out with your type of human, so it might be a little less likely for them to shit on you. However, on Team Neutral, it was a little different. So with Neutral, given that they're kind of middle of the road, they most likely have more friends who aren't used to what they're occasionally into and feel the need to voice that or mock it because they're friends, and apparently that makes that okay. However, given the numbers in mind, it's not. Many answered that they weren't bothered by it, but that in itself is a problem. That's not fair to you. It's fine to give an opinion. It's not fine to mock or insult. It's something that I've had to work on too, but it's worth it. Please also note how many said that it did bother them, but they just didn't tell you about it. And then this is just some stuff that people have fucking said to my fucking participants. But the long story short, they would like a thing and people would try to fucking dox them online. That's literally all this is. Fucking death threats, fucking people trying to get kicked off the goddamn internet. It's all kinds of shit. I have so many stories, but I have 15 minutes left and I haven't gotten to the mink section. So I have many hated fictional favorites, but Mink is probably my longest running hated husband. Quick rundown on my fictional husband of 9 years. So, long story short, he is seen as a bad guy, even though he fucking isn't. A lot of you know Mink, so I'm not going to go through all of this, but he's a love interest in Dramatical Murder, and he uses violence to get his way. And then after realizing that what he did was fucked up, he backtracks and completely exits the goddamn situation. And then Alba, who saw through all of that and was like, no, I want to be around you. I want to be with you. You're a rad person. Like, let me be around you. Holy shit. I love you. God damn it. Mink's like, no, like I've done so much shit to you. I can't do this anymore. And he literally leaves the goddamn country. In my personal opinion, he is completely fucking redeemable. And Alba also thought he was completely redeemable, but the fandom did not. I also included a picture of his Nendroid. You can make Mink choke Alba with the Nendroid. And that's canon, and I think that's great. Okay. Brief rundown on reasons why I relate. I relate to and empathize with the way Mink processes his trauma. I also related heavily with Mink's realization that he was acting like a fucking garbage person and he shouldn't fucking do that anymore. I've also not always been the easiest person to be around. And in both mine and Mink's cases, we kind of figured that out and began to take accountability and change. And we self-deprecated to an extreme degree. Even when people openly liked us, we never felt like they should because we don't deserve that. When Mink talks about himself, I often hear my own words come out, his reactions to certain statements, typically ones that involve affection towards him or in regards to literally anyone trying to help him without any kind of consent, involves him reacting negatively as he does not understand how anyone could love him. It just has to be fake. But last and certainly not least, he's hot, leave me alone. Step on me, beautiful creature. A few things. Okay, the one, did I put? I didn't. Okay. On the bottom right-hand side, you can see a printer, and there is a piece of paper on that printer. And I just bought that printer, and I was testing it because I use it for my job, and I wanted to know how good the quality was. So, of course, I printed off a Mink CG that I had saved in my phone, and it literally says, break me into pieces, pound me into pulp, grind me into paste. I don't care how. And then I hung it on my wall, and it's still there. But I digress. Reasons fans viscerally hate him. I'm going to try to go through this because it's good. Okay. First, the obvious. He starts out abusive as all get out. And even when he starts opening up and changing, nobody really cared. He was already trash, completely unredeemable. Secondly, the assumed age gap between Alba, the protag / love interest, and Mink. Mink looks about mid 30s, maybe 40s, depending on which CG or art that you're looking at, to be honest. Mink does not have a canon age, but Alba is canon 23, and people find the age gap gross. And additionally, the reason not many of them will admit to is he's not the standard conventionally attractive pale-skinned love interest. He's older, a person of color, he's canon Native American. It's only really obvious in some of the art. Yes, I am salty about it. He has a deeper tone of voice that sounds rumbly and perfect, and oh my fucking god. And even if you removed the initial abuse, his personality is not your standard likable ikemen type that many love interest characters tend to have. With that said, a comment a YouTuber made that I will not plug because he annoys me, and this is the only thing that I like about any of his content I fucking watched, but he really had a good point with this one, is that in relation to Songwoo from Killing Stalking, who's a serial killer with a long-running history of not only murder, but physical and sexual assault, alongside a dose of psychological manipulation, who has a fairly solid fan base of people who heavily simp him ship him with his main victim in the series, who has massive Stockholm syndrome. The YouTuber said something to the effect of, if he wasn't hot, you wouldn't love him so much. The physical appearance of a character is 9 times out of 10 going to affect your ability to empathize with them. In terms of the game Mink is in, Trip and Virus, who are conventionally attractive, have never been hated on as much as Mink, despite the fact that they are 1,000 times worse. The amount of things that they do to Alba is immense and graphic enough that I can't do it in an under 18 plus panel. I need to change that for like this one, because holy shit, this is 18 plus. They're fucked up. I love them. I'm not saying I don't love them, but they fucked up. Anyway, so now that I got that off my chest, shit that people have done to me, shamed me publicly in various ways. I had a friend who runs panels talk crap about me during their panel because they thought it was funny that I liked him. I had a cosplayer that I liked and followed who was posting Mink-related cosplay photos, and I gushed over one in the comment section and said, it said basically like, oh, I really like this, it's great, he's perfect, blah, blah, blah. And he responds, I'm going to judge you because you have bad taste. Mink was worst boyfriend. His design is killer though. Please note that this cosplayer also cosplays the likes of Light Yagami from Death Note, Tomura Shigaraki from My Hero Academia, Ryo from Devilman Crybaby, all of which are trash in some fashion. Yet I'm the problem for liking Mink. Okay, whatever. Anyway, I've had sellers at artist alleys essentially judge me when I buy Mink stuff from them damn near every time. They always give me questionable looks for buying art that they made of Mink that I'm paying them money for. This has happened multiple occasions when I made a comment in an artist alley to a creator of a cute Mink pin that I bought, that I appreciated that they included him at all in their Dramatical Murder merch, as I don't see him too often. They laugh and respond, yeah, he's just kind of hard to love. I'm like, oh, cool, awesome, thank you, thanks for that. While in a Mink-related cosplay at a convention, I had an Alba cosplayer, and this is one of my favorite stories, stare at me from afar, like they were trying to figure out who I was. I was cosplaying Mink's bird, Tori, which isn't immediately recognizable unless you know what you're looking for. And I guess upon realizing who I was dressed up as, gave me a weird freaking look and proceeded to grab their child and bolt in the other direction. I've seen Dramatical Murder cosplay groups at conventions, and I'm typically ignored or stared at or shamed to my face. Let's say that I know better than to go to meetups. Not a snub, but there isn't a single Mink Root Dramatical Murder Let's Play on YouTube that does not viscerally drag him. If you have one or have seen one, fucking link me, because I've never in my life. Moving on. I've been a devout Mink stan for a long goddamn time, and with age, I've started to kind of let the hate fuel me. I wasn't in the best place when I got into dramatical murder for the first time, and couldn't help but get attached to a character who I not only found extremely hot, but could relate to on a level I didn't know was possible for me at the time. Constantly being shamed over something that helped me try to, at least a little bit, like myself, did not do good things for my mental health. I'm not saying that that was the main cause of my deterioration at the time. There were many way bigger factors. But having my preferred hyperfixation level escapism of the time constantly shat on did not help. But with all that said, that's stupid, and here's why. In terms of someone who often finds these characters relatable, in the case of trauma or mental instability, as someone with copious amounts of trauma, we don't always relate or always view the world through the lens of someone who doesn't. We don't have that privilege. We see our environment through the lens we created ourselves in order to survive and pass as normal. This is also a common theme with misunderstood or villain type characters. They do what they have to, no matter how hard it is for others to understand to reach their goals. This, for me, is absurdly relatable. In terms of someone who just likes these characters or has no real solid reasoning other than they're hot and I like them, I just think they're cool, they are not hurting you. Misunderstood and villain types are often very well written. People are going to simp them. That does not mean that they're a bad person, nor does that mean that they would stand behind that behavior in a real life scenario. This is fiction. It's escapism. Move the fuck on. I don't exist to be constantly palatable for you, and neither does a misunderstood character. Sometimes we try to explain ourselves and our coping mechanisms, and sometimes we can't. And sometimes when we do, you still can't relate, nor would you ever understand that this is just how it is, and there is no adjusting that. Most of us spend a lot of time being angry, and there's a lot of things about us that we may never be able to change, no matter the amount of time that we spend in therapy or what drugs we're prescribed. We're just different, and sometimes that sucks. God forbid I find something in fiction that speaks to me on that level. Outcasts, in my experience, will relate easier to other outcasts before they would a typical hero. Sorry, Deku. I find comfort in the uncomfortable because I'm always uncomfortable. Quick aside before I wrap up, none of us can find merch and someone needs to fix that. On Team Villain, I had how difficult is it to find official merch for your favorite characters or media? 52 fucking percent were like, yeah, it's sometimes it is difficult. And then 26% was like always difficult or it doesn't even fucking exist. And then the follow-up, how difficult is it to find fan works of your favorite characters or media? It's even worse. 65% sometimes difficult and 17% always difficult. And it's similar on Team Neutral. So none of us can fucking find what we want, and it's sad. But anyway, to sum all of this up, a comment that one of my survey participants made that tied this up pretty nicely, trying to conflate favorite characters with personal morality is the same kind of stuff that made pearl-clutching moms shout that video games cause violent crime and made religious nuts ban their children from reading a fantasy novel series because it promoted witchcraft. The people who think that they completely shrugged off the yoke of their conservative upbringings and yet continue to do the same thing during using different words is honestly sad. And then I just love him. I have no solid basis. You can fight me. Questions. I have a little bit. I can probably go for 10 minutes before I need to yeet myself and let the other panelist for the next panel set up. And I am looking at the chat. If you want to fill out my survey, I should be updating this for next year. If you come to any of my in-person cons, I'll be doing it again. I want to say in March at EvilCon. That'll be my next con, I think. And then CitrusCon next year. Yay. Go have fun in semi-fight. we're talking about Mink. Mink proves the intersectionality of this too, just like some characters are liked more because of their appearance. Some characters are more problematic because of racism, transphobia, homophobia, ableism. 1,000%. Yeah. 1,000,000%. Yeah, other events are listed in the Discord. All of our events for this year are all in the Discord. If they're in Zoom, the Zoom links are attached too. Thank you for coming. I'm glad people came to this shit. Sam/Rainy Studios is doing something really similar, and I tried not to schedule us next to each other, and then it ended up happening anyway because we're basically talking about the same damn thing. I need to make it longer because I always talk too much. Thank you. If you want to chit chat, I may or may not be in the fucking Discord. We will see. God. Yay, that makes me happy. Yeah, if you want to take the thing, churchofbl.com. I'm also in the AA. So find my shit. I love you. If they all want to yeet, that's fine. I mean, I have someone right behind me that has to do shit. Yeah, I have most of this one typed out on screen. BL That Hurt Me that I'm doing twice. I'm doing one tonight and one in the morning. Won't have as much text on it, but I'm hoping that we can get better subtitles for next year. That just wasn't something that we figured out in time this year, and I am really salty about it. Thank you for coming. I can't see how many people are in here. Who am I? Can I like go back? Is that still realistic? Do I still have 81 people here? Shut up. I guess we're done. Nobody has anything to say. I love all of you. God. Bitch, we're married. Just DM me. Merp's doing a good job. Yeah, we're good. I have 18,000 things to do. I will go do my 18,000 things. To everybody still here, I love you. Bye-bye.